I've got some troubling news about England's royal family.
The gathering was meant to reassure a divided royal family. Instead, one furious accusation shattered the evening, silenced the room, and pushed Prince William beyond the limits of royal restraint. With King Charles watching, Camilla turned directly toward Princess Catherine and attacked her character, her influence, and her place within the monarchy. What happened seconds later was not merely a family argument. It was the moment years of buried resentment finally erupted in public. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Charles had called the family to Windsor Castle after months of strained conversations, cancelled meetings, and quiet suspicion between the two royal households. Windsor Castle, one of the monarch's principal residences, often serves as both a family home and a setting for important royal discussions. The king believed a private dinner might restore some sense of unity. He had asked William, Catherine, Camilla, Princess Anne, and several senior relatives to attend without advisors or officials controlling every word. Catherine began the evening beside Anne, speaking softly about the children and the coming weeks. The Princess Royal listened carefully, sensing that the calm was more fragile than it appeared. Across the room, William remained close to his father, hoping the gathering could ease the growing distance between them. The prince wanted peace, but he also knew his wife had been carrying a burden she refused to explain. Camilla changed everything with a single step forward. She turned toward Catherine and accused her of manipulating William, weakening the king's authority, and preparing to seize influence before her time. The queen consort did not speak vaguely. She claimed the Princess of Wales had interfered in a private royal decision, concealed her actions, and used her position as the future king's wife to bypass the reigning monarch. Catherine gripped the back of a chair. She did not answer. Her silence was not surrender, but Camilla treated it as guilt and pressed harder, insisting that everyone in the room deserved to know what had happened weeks earlier. Anne watched the princess's face tighten. Charles remained motionless. William saw his wife absorbing each accusation, while the family waited for someone else to intervene. The table shook when William struck it with his palm. He ordered Camilla to stop and declared that Catherine would never again be spoken to that way while he was present. The future king's voice carried years of frustration, and the sudden force of it stunned his father. Camilla stepped back, but she did not withdraw the charge. Charles finally looked toward Catherine. The monarch ignored his son's anger, ignored his wife's demand for support, and asked the question that turned humiliation into danger. "Is there something you have not told me?" Catherine slowly released the chair. As she prepared to answer, William understood the truth. Camilla's attack had never been spontaneous. She had entered the gathering ready to expose a secret capable of placing his wife directly against the king. Behind the royal titles stood three people carrying very different fears. Catherine feared that years of loyalty could be erased by one accusation. William feared his wife had become the target of a deeper campaign. Camilla feared something more personal, that the future monarchy was already moving beyond her control. Their conflict was not simply about protocol. It was about belonging, survival, and who would be trusted when the crown changed hands. Catherine had spent years building a reputation for discipline and discretion. The Princess of Wales, the title held by the wife of the heir to the throne, was not merely defending herself as William's partner. She was protecting the credibility she would one day need beside him. One accusation could turn loyalty into suspicion, and palace suspicion rarely stayed private. Camilla carried a different wound. She stood beside the reigning monarch, yet she knew the public future of the institution belonged to William and Catherine. Their growing duties and popularity made the queen consort feel exposed. She feared that every success they achieved reduced the space left for her. William felt betrayed by the setting as much as by the words. Camilla had chosen a family gathering, where Catherine would be expected to remain calm, to deliver the attack. The prince saw humiliation disguised as concern. He was not only defending his wife, he was confronting what looked like a deliberate attempt to weaken her before the people whose trust mattered most. Charles suffered in silence. The king understood that defending Camilla could push his son further away, while supporting Catherine might fracture the trust inside his marriage. He realized every answer carried a personal cost. Anne noticed something others had missed. Before dinner, the Princess Royal had seen Camilla holding a folded note against her palm. She quietly stopped an aide in the corridor and asked where it had come from. The answer was uncertain, but the timing was not. William found Catherine moments later beyond the closed door. He took her trembling hand and asked whether she trusted him enough to tell him everything. She said she did, but admitted one part of Camilla's accusation was true. She had intervened in a sensitive royal decision after Charles's office failed to stop something that could have harmed the younger generation. William asked what decision she meant. Catherine looked toward the door and lowered her voice. "I trust you completely," she said, "but I am afraid of what the truth will force you to do." To understand why she chose secrecy, William now had to face the earlier incident that transformed quiet rivalry into a direct battle for royal authority surrounding the crown itself. The confrontation at Windsor had begun weeks earlier in a smaller room, behind a closed door, during a meeting almost no one considered important. There were no cameras, no public statements, and no raised voices at first. Yet one proposed change to a royal ceremony forced Catherine to make a choice. She could remain silent and preserve peace, or intervene and risk Camilla's fury. The decision she made that afternoon became the point of no return. Catherine entered the private planning meeting expecting routine discussion. St. George's Chapel, the historic royal church inside Windsor Castle, had been chosen for a family service meant to display unity. Camilla then introduced a revised arrangement that moved the princess away from William during part of the ceremony and removed Prince George and Princess Charlotte from their planned place in the senior family procession. The change carried a deeper message. George stood directly in the line of succession, the legal order deciding who inherits the throne, while Charlotte represented the monarchy's next generation beside him. Moving them backward would not look accidental. Catherine believed it would suggest that her children had been deliberately pushed aside before the public. Camilla dismissed the concern without hesitation. She told Catherine that arrangements involving the reigning household were not hers to question. The queen consort then closed the planning folder and said, "You are not the queen." Catherine did not raise her voice. She pushed the folder back across the table and replied, "No, but I am their mother." George and Charlotte, she insisted, would not be used to settle an adult rivalry. The palace planners fell silent because everyone understood the danger of that sentence. Catherine acted after the meeting. She sent a private memorandum, a formal written note explaining a concern, to Charles's senior secretary, detailing why the alterations should be reversed. The king approved the original arrangement, believing he was correcting a poor planning decision. He never learned that the princess had initiated the review. Camilla discovered the truth days later. A copied page containing Catherine's handwritten amendments appeared inside a planning file, and the queen consort recognized the writing immediately. She saw no protective mother in those lines. She saw someone bypassing her authority and influencing Charles from behind the scenes. The folded note Anne had noticed before dinner was that copied page. Camilla had carried it into the Windsor gathering as evidence, waiting for the moment when Catherine would have the least room to defend herself. Now the hidden trigger stood exposed. The family would soon learn whether Catherine intended to apologize or confront Camilla before them all. Catherine had remained silent through humiliation, accusation, and the sudden suspicion in Charles's eyes. But when Camilla placed the copied memorandum on the table, silence was no longer protection. It had become surrender. With William standing beside her and the king waiting for an explanation, the Princess of Wales finally answered. She did not deny the intervention. She did something far more dangerous. She explained exactly why she believed Camilla's decision had crossed a line. Catherine confirmed that she had challenged the chapel arrangements and contacted Charles's office. The memorandum, a formal written note used to record concerns or recommendations, showed that she had focused on George and Charlotte rather than her own position. She said the proposed changes served no real ceremonial purpose. They simply pushed the children backward and made a private rivalry visible to the world. Charles read every line without speaking. The king saw no threat, insult, or demand for power in the document. He saw a measured argument from a mother protecting her children. Yet the monarch also understood why Camilla felt deceived. Catherine had reached his office without revealing the personal conflict that had driven her decision. Camilla seized on that silence. She accused Catherine of hiding ambition behind motherhood and making every challenge appear calm, reasonable, and harmless. The queen consort claimed the princess was slowly reducing everyone else's authority while presenting herself as the injured party. Catherine's composure hardened. She looked directly at Camilla and said protecting children was not ambition. No title, she continued, gave anyone the right to humiliate George or Charlotte to settle an adult grievance. William then asked whether the chapel changes were part of a wider pattern. Anne answered through her documented account of recent planning meetings. The Princess Royal said Catherine had repeatedly been excluded from discussions, while the Wales family's ceremonial role had been quietly reduced. Camilla turned on Anne. She accused her of supporting William's household against Charles, forcing the king to see the true scale of the fracture. This was no longer a dispute between two women. The senior family itself was splitting around him. Camilla stepped within arm's reach of Catherine and raised a pointed finger. William moved between them, lowered her hand, and spoke through clenched teeth. "You will not threaten my wife again." The room froze. William demanded that his father decide who had authorized the chapel changes, and whether Camilla would retain influence over arrangements involving his children. With the prince refusing to step aside, personal anger became something far more dangerous, a direct test of the king's authority. Every person in the room now understood that Charles could no longer restore peace with comforting words. A boundary had been crossed in front of witnesses, and the monarchy required a decision. Yet whatever he chose would wound someone closest to him. Restricting Camilla would appear to weaken his own household. Rejecting William's demand would tell the future king that his wife and children could be targeted without consequence. The crown had become a trap around the king himself. Charles held the formal authority to decide household roles, ceremonial access, and who entered private planning discussions. The reigning household meant the group of senior royals and staff serving the current monarch. William's future position gave him enormous influence, but it did not yet give him command over his father's court. That distinction mattered, because the argument had moved from family pain into constitutional power. William still controlled something Charles could not simply order: access to Catherine and their children. The prince could withdraw them from private gatherings, reject disputed arrangements, and refuse participation whenever he believed George or Charlotte were being used. That possibility frightened the king. A divided family could quickly become a divided monarchy. Charles told his son to lower his voice and remember where he was. William stared back and said he remembered perfectly. He was standing in a family room where his wife had been attacked while everyone waited for permission to defend her. The words landed harder than the earlier blow against the table. Camilla expected protection. Instead, the king asked why the children's positions had been changed. The queen consort's expression shifted as she realized he was questioning her judgment rather than condemning Catherine's secrecy. Anne then placed a documented account from the planning office beside the memorandum. The Princess Royal explained that advisors had warned Camilla the revisions would create needless tension. Records showed she had requested them anyway. Worse followed. Staff had been led to believe Charles approved the plan, although he had never seen it. Charles removed his glasses, folded the memorandum once, and set it beside his untouched drink. His hand remained on the paper. "You used my name without asking me," he told Camilla. Silence replaced anger. The balance had changed, and everyone knew it. No advisor moved, because any gesture could be mistaken for choosing a side openly. Charles finally asked Catherine, Anne, and the others to leave. She walked out slowly, uncertain whether William was about to secure a boundary or lose his father entirely. Behind the closed door, the king now had to decide which danger threatened him more: his son's fury or the breach of trust inside his own marriage. The decision was delivered without ceremony. There was no proclamation, no official seal, and no attempt to soften its meaning. Charles informed Camilla that she would no longer direct ceremonial arrangements involving the Wales family. He also ordered a review of every recent change made in his name. For the first time that evening, she had no reply. But the consequences did not stop with her. William's outburst had also forced the king to reconsider how much distance remained between them. Charles imposed the restriction quietly. Future proposals involving William, Catherine, George, or Charlotte would pass through the king's private secretary, the senior official who controls access, correspondence, and formal decisions around the monarch. Nothing affecting the Wales household could move forward without written approval. The change mattered because it removed Camilla's ability to shape family ceremonies through informal influence. Senior staff received a second order before midnight. The original chapel procession and seating plan had to be restored, and the instruction was to remain internal. Charles feared that public knowledge of the dispute would turn a family wound into a national crisis. Yet secrecy carried its own danger. Every altered schedule and canceled meeting could feed suspicion. Camilla heard the final terms after William left. She sat motionless near the cold fireplace. feeling the decision as both personal rejection and humiliation waiting to escape the palace. Then she removed a bracelet Charles had given her and placed it on the table. When he entered, she did not look up. "Have you chosen your son over your wife?" she asked. William returned to Catherine, still burning with anger. But guilt soon replaced fury. He feared that striking the table had confirmed every warning about him, that he was impatient, emotional, and unwilling to respect the current reign. Catherine took his hand and told him his defense had mattered. Then her voice hardened. Rage, she warned, could not become their method of leadership. Camilla's behavior must never decide what kind of king he became. Charles sent a handwritten message soon afterward. In it, he acknowledged that the attack should never have happened, but insisted that father and son speak privately about William's conduct. The prince read the note twice before answering. He did not refuse. He asked for the meeting that same night, with no secretaries, no advisors, and no one translating pain into palace language. For him, the coming conversation threatened not only authority, but the last fragile trust binding them together. Before Charles could repair his marriage, he would have to face William not as a monarch confronting an heir, but as a father confronting the son he may already have pushed too far away. For years, Charles and William had spoken through schedules, advisors, ceremonial expectations, and carefully controlled meetings. That night, all of those barriers were removed. They sat opposite each other with no private secretaries outside the door and no prepared language between them. The anger remained, but beneath it was something more painful. A father who feared losing his son, and a son who feared that protecting his wife would always be interpreted as a challenge to his father. William spoke first. He admitted that striking the table and shouting had been wrong, even if the instinct behind it had come from love. The prince understood that a future king could not allow fury to control his words. He refused to withdraw his defense of Catherine, but he accepted that leadership demanded more than righteous anger. Charles listened without interruption. The king then acknowledged that he had allowed tension between the households to grow, because confronting it would have forced him to choose between personal loyalty and institutional duty. Institutional responsibility meant protecting the stability and credibility of the monarchy, even when doing so caused pain inside the family. By avoiding that choice, the monarch had allowed resentment to harden. William's voice changed when he spoke about Catherine. He reminded his father that she had endured criticism, illness, pressure, and constant public judgment, without turning private pain into public conflict. Watching Camilla attack her while the room remained silent had broken something inside him. The future king could forgive disagreement. He could not accept deliberate humiliation. Charles lowered his eyes. He confessed that he had often mistaken William's independence for rejection. The king feared becoming irrelevant to the monarchy's future while still carrying responsibility for its present. His son's growing authority did not merely challenge him politically, it frightened him personally. William then revealed through their private conversation that Catherine had considered withdrawing from the chapel service to prevent further conflict. Charles immediately understood the danger. Her absence would have created a visible rupture, and the public would have noticed before the family could explain it. The two men agreed on a permanent boundary. No one from either household could alter ceremonial roles involving George or Charlotte without direct consultation with their parents and written approval from Charles. William rose to leave, but his father reached for his arm. "I should have stopped it before you had to," Charles said. The prince's anger finally softened. Neither man spoke for several seconds. Charles then made one final decision. Camilla would apologize directly to Catherine before the family left Windsor, not as queen consort, but as the person who had caused the wound. The institutional conflict had been contained, but the family could not truly move forward until Camilla faced Catherine without titles, witnesses, or excuses. By morning, the palace believed the confrontation had been contained. The family had remained inside Windsor, the staff had been warned to maintain silence, and no official statement was planned. Yet royal secrets rarely disappear. They escape in fragments. An altered schedule, a cancelled departure, a face seen through a car window. Before Camilla could complete the apology Charles demanded, the world outside the castle had already begun assembling its own version of the extraordinary night. Charles arranged the meeting in a small sitting room, away from the main family apartments. No aides attended. William waited elsewhere, after Catherine insisted she must face Camilla alone. A royal household, the private network of relatives and staff serving the monarch, usually protected difficult conversations with layers of protocol. This time, the king removed every layer. Camilla spoke first. She apologized for attacking Catherine in front of the family, and admitted that George and Charlotte should never have been pulled into the dispute. The queen consort did not deny her accusations, or pretend the anger had come from nowhere. Instead, she confessed that fear had shaped her actions. Catherine listened without interrupting. She accepted the apology, but refused to pretend the damage had vanished. Forgiveness, the princess said, did not mean returning to the same relationship or ignoring the boundaries now in place. Camilla would remain part of the family, but trust would have to be rebuilt through conduct rather than words. Camilla finally named the fear beneath the conflict. Watching Catherine become central to the monarchy had made her feel as though her own place was shrinking. The princess answered with painful calm. The future did not erase the present, she said, unless the present began fighting it. Outside Windsor, silence was already failing. Palace correspondents noticed that Camilla's scheduled engagement had been cancelled, while William and Catherine remained inside the castle far longer than expected. A late-edition newspaper appeared with William's car beneath the gates, and the headline, "Royal Family Showdown, Wales Couple Delay Departure After Private Crisis." Crowds gathered along the Long Walk, the ceremonial avenue leading toward Windsor Castle, watching every vehicle that emerged. Broadcasters repeated the palace's restrained statement that a private family matter has been resolved, but few believed those words told the whole story. Catherine finally left through the same entrance as Camilla. Before entering her car, she paused. The two women exchanged a deliberate nod. There was no embrace, no warmth, and no attempt to perform affection. Broadcasters called it controlled peace. The public saw reconciliation, but the true verdict lay in what the confrontation had permanently changed inside the royal family. The Windsor confrontation did not end with a victor standing over a defeated rival. It ended with boundaries that should have existed long before anger was required to create them. Camilla kept her place beside the king, but lost the freedom to interfere with the Wales family. Catherine preserved her dignity without demanding revenge. William defended his wife, then accepted responsibility for the way he did it. And Charles acted before resentment became a permanent royal fracture. Days later, Catherine entered St. George's Chapel beside William. A family procession, the formal order in which senior relatives enter a royal ceremony, placed George and Charlotte where they had first been assigned. The original plan had been restored, and no one attempted to reduce their role again. Camilla accepted the limits placed on her involvement. The queen consort remained beside Charles, but she no longer controlled decisions affecting the Wales household. The restriction wounded her pride, yet she understood that using the king's authority without clear permission had damaged her credibility and marriage. Catherine emerged without triumph. She had not demanded punishment or revenge. Her strength came from restraint. The princess protected her children, defended her place, and refused to become cruel in return. That choice made her the emotional center of the family. William carried a different lesson. The prince knew he would defend those he loved, but he also understood that control was not weakness. His apology to Charles mattered, because leadership demanded courage and discipline. Anger had exposed the fracture. Responsibility prevented it from becoming permanent. Charles saw the cost of avoidance. The king had believed silence could preserve unity, but delay had allowed insecurity to threaten his bond with his son, daughter-in-law, and grandchildren. He answered by approving a formal household protocol, a written rule requiring direct parental consultation before any ceremonial decision involving the Wales children. At the chapel, Catherine took Charlotte's hand before the procession began. William looked toward his father, and Charles gave a small approving nod. Camilla stood beside the monarch, composed but silent, understanding that the family had not rejected her. It had stopped bending around her fears. The gathering changed the monarchy because it established one clear moral boundary. The crown could not demand loyalty while permitting humiliation, and rank could never excuse cruelty toward those expected to carry the institution forward. William's anger exposed the fracture, Catherine's restraint prevented revenge, and Charles's decision repaired what remained. The monarchy survived because everyone at last fully understood the line that could never again be crossed. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.